Guys, feeling a little bit stressed or a little bit anxious about paying your rent, whether it be commercial or residential, there is a better way. We're going to talk about it today.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes, episode 529. If you can't pay your rent, what to do, Mark and I. It's a sensitive topic today, but I think it's a necessary topic, and it's agents love to talk all positive. The world is full of rainbows and flowers, but this will be a bit more of a real topic because shit sucks. Let's face it. And we do a lot of commercial. We've got a lot of properties under management. We have a lot of retail. And I think if you're not there's either you need to be planning for the worst and even more so. Like just a random industry, a hair salon.
It's hard to plan because of what's happening. So even if you go to plan, it's hard to plan, eh?
Yeah. And then you've got to, I think a lot of people, this is all right. If you don't do anything, you put your head in your sand. Let's say you're a hair salon. I think the reality is there's a very, very good, like you got to plan worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is we're going to probably be closed till February. They're saying December, November. More than likely you'll get to that period and they say, oh, we don't want people socializing for Christmas and all that crap. So let's push it back. They did it last year. So and if they're saying November, December, it's always later. When has it ever been on time, even Melbourne? So I think be real with that. So if you're a retailer who can't do an online business, you're not going to be having your doors open for nearly 6 more months. A lot of people sort of that I know now are just like, I can get to next month. It's like, we said it a couple of months ago, Mark, plan for 3 months. I think now it's even worse. You got to be planning for 6 months, no income. And if you don't plan, you're just going to walk out of the property and have all your savings gone. But what should they be doing, Mark? I know communication's big.
Yeah, look, it's a really hard one. And look, like you said, equally as it is hard to ring up your landlord's agent and have a discussion with them about, it's embarrassing. Because generally you've never missed a beat. You've had a perfect track record. It creates anxiety. It creates stress, embarrassment. But even us talking about it today, we're like, shit, this is a real sensitive topic. Do we really want to be going on air with it on the fly live and potentially sound really stupid or got to be considerate about equal parties because everyone says, oh, poor tenant, but I know someone very close to my family is going through a very hard time at the moment. I don't think it helps having all that time, Burge.
Yeah.
I don't think it helps. It almost creates more white noise in the brain because it's like that's all you think about. You know what I mean? Whereas before you'd be juggling 10 balls, now you're juggling one, and you just got so much. So I know, very close to my life person, it's like all they talk about is COVID, and then now their tenants not paying arrears, and it's like sell the property. Shit. It's stressful. So what's my point? What's the question again?
Shit hits a fan, tenant head in the sand. The main thing, you got to be communicating with your landlord. It's embarrassing, but you guys and girls, landlords need to be sitting face to face and be like, this is a reality. I'm a hairdresser and my rent's $1,000 a week. I normally cut 50 hairs. I make $3,000. I have 1,000 for family, 1,000 for taxes, and 1,000 for rent. There's no money coming in. And let's say you had 30 grand in savings. Do you want it? Like, it's not realistic to eat that up. So you need to be, or people, if you don't have the gentleman's conversation with your landlord and be like, let's face, like, this is reality. the lockdown wasn't 4 weeks, it's not 8 weeks, it's going to be another 7 months. Instead of me just closing the doors and leaving, and good luck legally trying to get me for it, you want to sort of maintain that relationship because it won't be forever. And if you just cut and run, you're going to burn that chance with that landlord to come back. You may not that you
fit out.
Sorry,
you fit out.
You fit out, like
you spent,
Yeah, so you lose that, but I think so. There's options out there. I think what Luke said, get a job. I think that's like you can't be relying on the government. That's not a bad option. There are industries that are pumping, Woolworths, Coles, and I know probably emotionally, if you've owned your own business, getting a job at Woolies would suck. But the reality is, if you've spent a couple $100,000 on your fit out, and walking away is not an option, and you've got no income coming in, like what's the government money? Like $500 a week. So you need to have
it's
that. It's not going to do anything.
I think, guys, you can't forget. Life was great for your business prior to COVID. For businesses that were operating profitable and running, it's not you. It's COVID, and COVID's not going to be around forever. So it's biding time. It's biding probably 6 months, maybe 12 to 18, depending on if COVID comes back, how many waves, and when and the styler comes back. So it's really getting through that. And it was interesting what Luke said about getting a job. It's very counterintuitive to go and get a job to pay for a business that's failing because of COVID. But when you consider, Burge, what you're saying, there's fit outs, there's a great business there, but it's only just blocked at the moment. Just to buy time to keep those doors, to keep that their landlords are negotiating. So landlords are saying, okay, look, let's see if we can keep this sustainable, because the landlord's going to have to find another tenant. That's going to cost them money. A landlord's going to have to do rent free. That's going to cost them money. And a landlord may have to contribute to a new fit out of the property, and the D fit out may be expensive. So it's well worth exploring. But with what Luke said about getting another job, it's very it's a real head fuck to do that, because you almost feel like you're abandoning, even if it's temporary, abandoning your business. But Burge, get this, I was walking with a friend on Sunday, and guess what they said one of the newest fads is? I laughed my head off. Having two careers, having two jobs. And I was like, what do you mean? They said earning 40 hours a week, being a electrical engineer for that company, and then doing 40 hours a week being an electrical engineer for another company. So you actually, the guy was juggling two computers. He had a blue computer and a red computer. During the same hours, he doubled up. Anyway, my point is what Luke was saying, get a job. Same thing. You may do a little bit of your business on the side, and then get like a 40-hour block job just to pay for shit.
And keep your mind sane. You imagine sitting at home 40 hours a week, not being able to do your profession. You'd be checking every COVID update. You'd be hoping everyone is saying it'll end in 4 weeks. You'll be grasping on what everyone's saying there. You almost need the distraction. Most people either do it with positive things, health, fitness, work, or negative, whinging or drinking. So I think that would be a crucial thing. But you're right, you don't want to be getting that job just to pay for the rent. That's why you got to have a realistic conversation. It's more to have the money, keep the savings there instead of just sitting and waiting, because then you'll be even worse off. Steve said, great question with retail. What would you recommend? Steve, is that from a landlord's point of view or a tenant's point of view? Because from a landlord's point of view, there's two different landlords I see a lot in commercial. There's the owner who basically owns the building. They've owned it for a long time. They don't have a mortgage on the property. It doesn't mean they don't want the income, but they may be a bit more susceptible. There's different options they could take. They may be very inclined to have a much smaller rental income to keep you in the property because you've been a great tenant, you got a big fit out. They may look at doing more rent later sort of thing in a year. I think people saying no rent now, pay me in 3 months. It's got to be a lot longer. If you're 6 months closed, you may need a year or two to pay that back over increments. So a tenant that may not have a mortgage pressure will have a different conversation. Now, an owner with the mortgage pressure then it's got to be a bit more realistic, because we are still leasing a lot of property out there. We are still leasing to businesses, but the tenants are a bit different. We've said on the show before, they're COVID lockdown proof tenants. They're more, you may have a shop that you bought that would be great for a chicken shop, great for retail. You now need to change that to maybe a more office space, a lawyer, a chiropractor. So look at the businesses that are open through COVID, your medicals, the businesses that do more outbound online and just need office space. You need to maybe find them. So you may speak to your current tenant and say your fit out, it may not be too specific to fit out, and say, hey, I'm going to if you can't pay rent and it's not looking like you're going to be open, let me put the shop for lease. We'll see what we get. We may get someone who will sublease the shop for 6 months off you. They may do a year. Like, there may be doing something there, and you don't know what that may come. I think a lot of people may think, well, if we find this industry, just try something. So, Steve, that's what I would recommend from the landlord's point of view, or have a brand new tenant, spend dollars on fit out, only trading 2 weeks. Yeah, so sort of what I said, if there's mortgage pressure or if there's not mortgage pressure, sort of two different responses. And also you got to have the real conversation with your tenant. Can they make money elsewhere? A lot of tenants can make just as much online or traditional. So got to cut through the bullshit of tenants who can pay rent, who are trying not to because their doors are closed, but they're doing more business through the back door or outline. At the back
I think,
door.
and look, I think to answer, Steve, your question, before, what I was thinking is blow shit up as well, where sometimes, before I answer Steve's question, sometimes it is actually more economical to let go of the property, let the landlord re-engage a new tenant, and everyone go off on their merry way. Sometimes you are flogging a dead horse. Unfortunately, I really don't like to, admit defeat with a tenant. But I think the key thing, over to Steve's question, is with a tenant that's just moved in. I think good communication in our business seems to be the essence of a successful outcome. It's the core ingredient. So good communication, daily communication with that tenant. You're talking large sums of money for a landlord, a tenant. You're talking people's lives. So I think working through these tenants and commerce and business and all the things that we've said is very important. I'll give you a perfect example. I've got a landlord who's retired, very successfully retired, and he was in food. And he's just put another tenant into his property, owned it forever, and the tenant's in food. Now, this landlord loves food so much that he's gone to work with the tenant for free. So he's like, you know what? We can do this. I can help you. I know how to do this. I know how to do that. And the tenant's like, I can't find any labor. I can't find any help. So they've just gotten together and they're just getting through this. And there's no airs or graces that, he doesn't need to work. He's just happy to go to work. He loved his job already. My point is, Steve, I would get in. I'd tuck in real close with your real estate agent, and I'd tuck in real close with your tenant, and I'd just work through that to see if there's anything, because, we've all got different add value that we can add, and you can't do that without being close to each other and communicating. It's the number one thing you can do here, guys.
But also, you've got to have that good advice from an agent. Like, if you've just got a new tenant, how long did it take you to find that tenant? Because if your property was empty for a year and you just got a tenant who just did a fit out, you wouldn't be very quick to be like, out you go, I'm going to find a new tenant. Because what's the reality? If you couldn't find a tenant for a year before COVID, during COVID, you'd rather have someone who wants to be there, that even if they're not paying rent, wants to be there, committed to being there. And then when things get better, which could be in 3 months, could be in 6 months, they're there for a 4-year lease sort of thing. But if you've got a property that you could switch out a tenant, you may be a little bit more. Yeah, it took 7 months to lease out. There you go. Which is bad, but not too bad for commercial. But it is bad when you go, I just gave them 2-3 months free rent. I already got a discount to what it was rented for before COVID. So it's one of those things where it's like sometimes it sucks for everyone, and to sometimes even for a landlord to be like, I'm going to have no rent for 3 months. But if I can clear out, because if things get worse, it's going to be very hard to lease out, especially if your property is very specific to a food outlet or something like that. If you've got a bit more versatility where you could have an office space, but then it goes, how many other offices are empty? If I get rid of them to trying to find a lawyer or a chiropractor, it'd be harder.
But another one out there, guys, think outside of the box. It's not just money. Yeah. You know, like for instance, this barter, trade, contra deal. Is there anything else that they can offer or put on the table to get them through? Probably sounds silly. I've been watching this car show at the moment on Netflix, and the guys keep trading. They keep, rather than taking cash for selling these cars, they keep trading for other stuff or other cars, and it's like, you know. So don't forget, guys, that it's, you know, money or rent in arrears is not the only commodity. You know, that you may be able to give that tenant a job. That tenant may be able to do something for you that's key to their business. They may have a car that's being unused that they'll say, take this as payment, and then when I earn the money back, give it back to me. I don't know, but I'm just saying that. Yeah. It's not just think outside of the square. Heavily communicate. That's our show.
Yeah, the point is, if you've got a property and the tenant's closed and you guys are not talking and you don't have a plan for another 6 months, you're screwed. It's bad.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and I have been saying, Burge, if it's taken us 9 weeks to get to this peak, if this is the peak, it'll take us 9 weeks to come back out of that peak.
And the
right.
Rest.
So if it's going to take 12 weeks to get into this peak, it's going to take us from the peak. It's going to take us 12 weeks to get out of the peak. So wherever that peak is, the distance it takes to get into it is the time it's going to take to get out of it. So don't think that any time that we're coming out of this within a week or within a month, and don't plan your financials on that for arrears. Furthermore, with residential, Michael, you and I were saying off air, you may be paying $650 a week on a one bedder. Your buddy may be paying $650 a week on a one bedder. You can't pay your rent because of work or something like that. Consider moving in with a friend who's going to give you company in these hard times. Move in with a friend and halve your rent, or reduce your rent. So there's different, this isn't just a solution, find a solution for commercial, residential. It's for arrears, but it all starts with communication. And you've got to be honest with your friends to find that solution of, let's move in together. And you go, you know what, I'm going through a bit of pain. Yeah, I'm going through a bit of pain as well. You know what, I'm friggin' bored. Yeah, I'm fucking friggin' bored as well. Next thing you know, why don't we get a really cool 2 or 3 bedder, have a bit more room, and it's going to cost us less than what we're currently paying.
Yeah, the thing, but also when you're saying about the time in and out, it's also being realistic. Just because things open up, that business may not generate any income for a month because it takes a while to kick back up. So really plan long. And then make it work long. 6 months, 9 months. We've said it on other shows, you're not going to be annoyed if it comes short. Like we were saying before, when it was 4 weeks, plan for 3 months. Now it's like, okay, at least if you have that plan, you can build on that and plan for another 6 to 9 months. Because the reality is, even when we come out of it, more than likely we're going to go back into another lockdown for a month or two anyway. At least you have that communication. It won't be a one-off. So we're going to come out of it, let's say November. Then who knows? By March, we're in another lockdown for 3 months, whatever it is. So, but yeah. Anyway, that's a wrap. We'll talk for a while. Cheers.
Thanks, Mr. BURGIO. Hope we helped you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.